Hello. I wanted to make this video for people who are just starting out in yoga, who are thinking about getting into it, or are still kind of in the beginner stage and wants to know a little bit more about yoga and some tips and stuff that they can do moving forward. First of all, I want to say that yoga is for everybody. So don't think that it's a stereotype that only certain kind of people do yoga. It's for any age, any body type, period. The benefit of yoga is whatever you put into it. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. It is about stretching. It is about creating more strength in your body. It can even help build up your bone density as well. But it's also about more of a connection with your body and your mind and your spirit. It's about bringing everything together and being aware of who you are and where you are and how you can become more aware of yourself and your body. I used to be a very kind of klutzy person a little bit where, I was stumbling and dropping stuff a lot or tripping over stuff a lot. And after starting to do yoga for a while, I started to realize that this was happening because I wasn't aware of my body as much as I could be. And with steady and regular practice, I became more aware of myself. So there are a lot of benefits to yoga that you will find more of as you practice and deepen your practice. But the first thing about yoga is just getting started. Okay, so first let's talk a little bit about a yoga mat. Okay, you'll see that almost everybody has one when they're working out. Some people even have their own. I have my own, and I've had mine for about 8-9 years. I did not have a yoga mat when I first started. I wasn't even sure I wanted to get into yoga, so I did some poses and stuff at home and stuff. And then I started going to a YMCA and doing yoga there. And then I realized after a while that I really did want to have my own mat. And I found that when I got my own mat finally, after a year or two after practicing, that it actually helped deepen my practice. Because what happens when you have a yoga mat is it's like a cue to your brain, okay, it's time to get serious. It's time to start working on bringing your mind and body and spirit together now in this moment in time. And it just helps me focus so much more on what I'm doing. It does help also with poses to help ground yourself into poses a little bit more because it has that surface to where it keeps it so you're not slipping so much. So that is a benefit too. So if you're doing a lot of standing poses, having a mat is beneficial to you as well. Now there have been times where I've actually used a towel. I'll be out visiting somewhere and not bring my mat, or I'm in a hotel or something and I don't have my mat, and so I will get a towel and I'll lay it out on the floor and I'll use that instead. So let's talk a little bit about breath. If you've done any sort of yoga classes at all with a yoga instructor, you will have probably heard them talking about your breath and breathing and how important it is. And it is. Breathing and yoga go hand in hand. It's something you really need to pay attention to and be aware of. First of all, when you're breathing, a lot of people breathe in their chest, or their breath is really short. It's not very long. It's very shallow. And this is actually not a good way to breathe. You're not allowing the oxygen to fully circulate in your body, so you're depriving your organs and your body of important breath when you have that really short chest breathing. So when we're doing yoga, we really want to do breathing from the belly. So it's good to have some time to practice your breath and just your breath and get used to breathing the right way. And you breathe deep in from your belly, and I even put a hand on my belly sometimes so I can feel it. And you just breathe in and breathe out. And you'll notice with yoga, when you're learning the yoga and hearing the instructors talking about your breath and everything, that the breathing is much longer. And that's a good thing because it's allowing your breath to really get in and out as it needs to. You're really filling the lungs and you're releasing the lungs. I mean, you're getting that breath in and out completely. So the more you practice your breath, the better your workout with your yoga is going to be too, because using the breath to go in and out of poses makes the transition of moving in and out of the poses easier. Also, breathing out and having long exhales is good when you're doing the yoga, because as you're exhaling, you can also think about relaxing your muscles and releasing that tension from your body. And you may not even notice how much deeper you're going into until you become more focused on the here and now. As you become focused on the here and now and what you're doing, and when I say the here and now, I mean your thoughts are on what you're doing right here and right now. They're not on your grocery list or taking the kids to school or paying the bills or what you're going to have to do as soon as you're done with your yoga or what have you. And that's one of the other things the breath is going to help you do, is it's going to help you focus on what you're doing. Okay? And as you're focused on what you're doing with your body and you're here in the here and now, you're going to be able to notice how much more you're going into these poses and relaxing into these poses. And sometimes it's going to be really subtle. It might even be almost microscopic. But it's really actually a really good feeling knowing that you've been struggling with a certain pose for a long time, but then you can feel your breath let out and you feel yourself stretch forward just a little bit more. And it's such a really good feeling knowing that you're getting better, even if it's just little bits at a time. And that really is what yoga is all about, is it's moving forward in slow, easy paces that you can do that feel good to you. So really, yoga is what you can do, what feels comfortable for you. You know your body. You know if you have had any sort of surgeries with your shoulders or your wrist or your legs or your knee. So if you've had, maybe not even surgeries, maybe just pain, maybe just areas that are tight or you've had problems with in the past, you know your body. So when you're going into a pose, be aware of that. Be aware that you're going to have to either get us some support, and different ways you can support yourself in yoga and different poses is getting a blanket and having a blanket available so that you can support yourself, so you're not going as deep into a pose or you're just giving yourself a little extra cushion. One of the things, I don't really have an issue with my knees, they really are uncomfortable when I go into kneeling poses on the mat. So what I like to do is I like to have a blanket nearby so I can put a little bit underneath my knees and prop my knees just a little bit. And the blanket's just really not even too terribly thick. I mean, it's not that thick, but it's just what I need to give my knees a little bit of a cushion so they don't hurt as much when they're in the mat. So those are things to be aware of when you're doing the yoga. And there may be some poses that you're just not even going to be able to do. When I started taking my yoga instructor class, I really realized how important it was to do a daily yoga practice. And so that's when I really started to be more on the ball and making sure I get something done as much as I can. Now, I only still do yoga about 4 to 5 times a week. But I can definitely feel it when I'm not doing a practice. That day I can definitely tell. So how long do you do it for? It differs. Sometimes my practice will only be 20 minutes. I feel like I get 20 minutes in, that's enough for me. And then sometimes I'll do as much as 45 minutes to an hour. Typically, most of my practices are about 25 to 30 minutes. That's my average. And those are good. That's a good time for me. But everybody's going to be different, and really you need to do what's good for you. I would suggest doing your own at-home practice. on a regular basis. It's helpful. It's been incredibly helpful for me, so I know it would be helpful for you, but that is ultimately up to you. And believe me, I know I've been in do it for a little while and then you don't do any yoga for weeks on end. And then you do it for a little while and then you don't do yoga for weeks on end. It was actually helpful for me to do the yoga instructor class because it motivated me to be more on ball about my at-home practice. Now, do you need to go out and take yoga classes in a yoga studio or in a gym? That's up to you. You can. I've done practices in both. Most of mine's been in the Y because I had a membership for a Y for years, so I would go into the yoga class and take part in that. And those were very nice. I enjoyed that a lot. I learned a lot about yoga and learned a lot of different poses that way. And I even made some friends that way too, so it was really, really nice. A yoga studio I find was a little bit more about the yoga itself. It was more focused because with the Y, at the Y I felt it was more of an exercise. And that's the thing. Yoga can be just an exercise, and that's okay. But really, yoga is a lot more than just a yoga exercise. It's about what you learn along the way. It's a journey, and it can encompass your entire life if you want to. It's a mindset too. So if you decide to do an at-home practice with your yoga, how do you figure out what sort of poses to do? Well, it's really going to be about taking some classes or getting a book or getting a video and doing some yoga to figure out what poses you want to do. I do have my favorite poses that I typically do in every practice or most every practice, but I also like to mix it up with different poses as well. So really, it's going to be about just putting yourself out there and learning what's there, what kind of things you can do, what kind of poses you can put your body into, what feels good to you, what do you like. It took me a while to really get comfortable with even doing my own at-home practice without using a book or a video or anything like that. And I just sort of put poses that I'd learned from other people or other places together and just did my own thing, and it was actually a lot of fun when I started doing that because I was like, oh, this is kind of nice because I can do my own thing. I'm not following somebody else or doing something else that someone else says. I'm doing what feels good to me. And it's not really even after a while, became what's good for my body because I stopped my mind long enough to listen to my body, and my body was saying, ooh, I really would love to do some back bends right now because I'm feeling really tight in the torso, today my body's just not feeling like doing any intense poses, so I would do some sitting or laying down poses. So I just the more I listened to my body, the better my at-home self-practice got and the more enjoyable it became. So you'll find that usually at the end of a yoga class, it's going to have a period of time where you're doing a very relaxed pose and focusing on your breath. Most classes are going to end with Shavasana or corpse pose, and this is a pose where you're laid completely flat on your back and everything is just flat and you're just kind of relaxing into the mat. Not all classes end this way. I've ended classes where I'm standing in mountain pose where you're all nice and straight. I've ended classes where you're sitting up and you're like an easy pose where you're sitting with your legs crossed and you're just breathing for a while. The point of ending a class, though, with one pose for a little bit and focusing on the breath is to really relax the body because you've put your body through these different poses and moves and stuff. So now you want to kind of bring all that down so that you feel a connection, a real deep connection with your body and breath as you just kind of bring all that down and relax a little bit. And I actually look forward to them in every single yoga routine because I know that when I'm done with all the stretching and going here and doing this and standing and bending back and everything, I have this Shavasana that I'm looking at, that I have, that I'm going to reward myself with. Just some time to be quiet and breathe and just be for just a little while, however long that might be. And at my home, when I'm doing my home practice, I've even had Shavasanas as long as half an hour because I am enjoying just laying back and just relaxing and breathing, and it just feels so good. But I suggest doing at least 10. 10 minutes is a good time because that's allowing yourself to just kind of reset everything so that when you get up and you go do whatever it is you're doing for the rest of the day, that you have that nice quiet time before you start all the chaos. It's the Shavasana is about taking care of yourself and just allowing yourself to be for a little bit. And yoga, really, all yoga is, too, is about taking care of yourself and taking time for yourself. And that was one struggle for me when I first started because I had like a 3-4-year-old little boy running around, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and I felt like it was my responsibility to be there with him all the time. But I needed that time out. And for me, yoga was that time out for me. And I'm really glad I took that time for myself. And I'm really glad that I loved myself enough to move my body and stretch my body and do poses that would help me, that eventually eliminated my back pain. It took a little while, but I found that the more consistent I was with my yoga practice, when I stayed consistent with it, I could completely eliminate any of the back pain that I had, which was fantastic. So, and then I would stop my yoga for a little bit and the pain would come back, and then I realized, oh, I hadn't done yoga in a while, so I'll get back into it, and then I was good again. So I hope that this video was helpful to you in giving you some basic information about yoga. It is by far just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to learn and so much more to know. But if you're just first getting in, or you've been in for just a little bit and you need a little more information, I think this is a very good start. I will say too that if you are having significant pain or pain that's not going away, that you really should consult your doctor first. Though if you are having some issues like muscle issues or tight joints or whatever, this kind of exercise can be helpful. But everybody's different, every body's different, and everyone's going to have different issues or problems. So if you do have medical conditions, consider that too before you do yoga or you do certain poses. And if you're not sure, please consult your doctor before you move forward. I hope that each of you have a really great journey with your yoga. It's been a marvelous journey for me, and I hope that this helps you as you move forward. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me at cynthia.dgriffin@mail.com with any questions at all, and I will be happy to help you move forward with that, whatever.